Arun.
Oh, well, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning. So I'd like to first introduce any guests. Do we have any guests today? Okay. And we'll start off with our invocation. Do we have an invocator?
I'll be doing the invocation.
Okay, let's start off with the invocator.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Today we have a new starting of a new month of April, but I noticed that in the schedule, in the way the vaccines are coming out, for the COVID vaccines are coming out, it looks like this month will be vaccine month, where a lot of us will get it. And look around because there's a lot of openings now for vaccines. So it's a different world. People are moving in, and I noticed in my last travel, a lot of people are going back to work and very sluggishly acting kind of disoriented when they go back to their offices, and you may have that, and because everybody's been at home for a long time, so you might get disoriented. So just be, and I noticed that a lot of the places that were affected, right? There's a lot of my favorite cafe is not there anymore. So you have to be patient, and there's some may open, some may not. So we are exploring a different world, a new world, and just be patient, and things will work out in the end. There's always, it may not be the same, but there is a version of the old world there. Look for it and celebrate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. And now I'd like to introduce our Toastmaster of the day, Jose, who just did the invitation for our meeting. Jose is an eclectic speaker, speaks a lot about marketing and sales, but also has a lot of thoughts and ideas on spirituality and meditation and exercise and well-being. So fellow Toastmasters, let's welcome our Toastmaster of the day, Jose.
So for our April 7th meeting, our lineup is pretty much set. I assigned a few roles. Double check it again. Going through the roles. Accounters Haroon, the timers Wei Ming, word masters Godam, grammarians Hannah, ballot counter it will be Hannah towards the end, and video master Haroon. The speakers, so everybody's familiar. Our speaker lineup will be Louis being the first speaker. He will do his icebreaker. Zanya will have a speech also. And then we'll have Wei Ming. And the last minute speech, thank you very much, Wei Ming, for being very good in coming up with impromptu speeches. And then we'll have our GE as Georgie. I didn't have a chance to ask. I think that's good, right, Georgie? And then we'll have our first evaluator, Georgie, Haroon, and then Goram as our evaluator sequence. So let's first call on our jury masters. Haroon will be our accounter. Please explain your role as accounter, Haroon.
Thank you, Jose. As accounter, my job is to count all the ahs and ums and filler words that you may have in your daily speaking. I'll also be looking for any repeated words. So things like so, just like I said right now, so's, there's, we's, and so forth. And at the end of the meeting, once the meeting is concluded, I will give a report on who did the most. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
And our timer is running.
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, my function is to run the time today. I just want to confirm all the speakers' time. I think Louis, the tip for his icebreaker is going to be 46 minutes, but it could be longer. And then Zanya, how long did you speak? 5 to 7? Okay, and then mine says 5 to 7 as well. So at 5 minutes, the green light will come on, 6 minutes, the yellow, and then at 7, the red light, and we have 30 seconds to finish. Evaluation is 2 to 3 minutes, table topics 1 to 2 minutes, and I'll report the time at the end of the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Wemi. Our word master is Gordon.
Morning, fellow Toastmasters and everyone. The word of the day is pristine. Meaning is it's an adjective word in its original condition, which is unspoiled, or you can say it's a clean and fresh as new. It's a pristine white shirt. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordon. And then we'll have our grammarian as Hannah.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. I will be tracking proper use of grammar and reporting back at the end of the meeting. Just focusing on past and present participles as well as other kind of forms of grammar. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. And also our ballot counter is Hannah.
Thank you once again, Mr. Toastmaster. I will be counting ballots through the Google voting, which will be linked in the chat. So take a look at the chat towards the end of the meeting. You will be voting for the best speakers, best evaluators, and best table topics master this morning. Thank you.
And finally, our video master. Video master will be Haroon.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. As video master, my job is to record the proceedings of the meeting. Once the meeting is over, I will be uploading it to a private YouTube channel. If you do not wish to be recorded, please let me know so that I can pause the recording. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Haroon. So we're going to start off our prepared speeches. Our first speaker is new to the club. He will do his icebreaker speech. In a lot of ways, you can think of it as something, he's a new guy, so it's very, very new and pristine. our word for today. Let's raise our hands for our first speaker, Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Let me share my screen here and get started. Let's see. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, after hearing all your great speeches over the last several weeks and getting to know you all, I'm very excited to finally share a little bit about myself. Sorry, do you guys see the side view of you guys right now? You guys typically close that out, or is it just stay there?
We are seeing only the slides.
Oh, you guys are only seeing the slides. Okay. Let me start again. So
You might be able to change just at the top, Louis, your presenter mode. I don't know if it allows you to see the settings. Sorry to interject.
no, thanks. I just
Okay.
see all of you guys listed on my right side, and so typically when I'm on the other Zoom side, I don't see any of you guys. I just see the slides. But if you are only seeing the slides, then that's fine. Yeah, so I mean, as I was saying, it's like after hearing all your great speeches over the last several weeks and getting to know you all, I'm very excited to finally share a little bit about myself in my very first speech today, my icebreaker speech. So today I present to you my icebreaker speech. I can't talk about myself without talking about my family. In this photograph here, you'll see my two parents, my sister on the right, and then my brother on the left. And the reason why I want to bring up my family is because they're such a important aspect of my life. They influence my ambitions, my motivations, and make me the best version of myself. And so first, I just want to talk about my two parents in the middle. My parents are the epitome of the ultimate sacrifice. They're the byproduct of the Vietnam War. And, they left everything they had in Vietnam in search of a better life in America to support themselves and support my family. I can't even fathom what they went through because, as kids and growing up as like teenagers, they had to work minimum wage jobs at McDonald's and gas stations to pay for their rent, their college education, and support all of us. And for me, I just feel blessed because all I had to do growing up was play video games, play sports. So my parents are a huge inspiration, and for them to do that for us, I hope to return the favor to them one day and take care of them. On the right side of this photo is my older sister, Amy. She's the epitome or the definition of the golden child. Growing up, it was hard living under her shadow because, she was ASB president, homecoming queen, volleyball captain, and so forth. And so for me, it's like I always felt like I had to chase after her and like live up to her aspirations and potential. But as I got older, I realized it's not about competing against my sister and beating her or being the best for that matter, but just to be the best version of myself and strive to always improve. And so I attribute my sister for instilling that kind of mindset in me. And lastly, on the left-hand side of this photo, it's my brother, Larry. He's the youngest, and he's the goober and the baby of the family. He's always the sensitive one and just the joking one. And so, how I looked up to my sister as a role model, I try to be a role model to my younger brother because he needed that nurturing. And so what I attribute to my brother is that he helped me be a better leader and mentor to him to guide him through life. And then also, have that approach towards everyone I meet, whether it's my personal or working life. Next, I just want to touch on my kind of education and what I do for a living. I attended Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a degree in business administration and a concentration in accounting. And accounting isn't the sexiest of subjects, but I had a knack for the debits and credits. I was able to balance out the equations pretty well. And so I decided to do accounting. And after I graduated Cal Poly, I studied for the CPA exam and passed the exam and became a certified public accountant. And now I work at Apple, where I work as a revenue analyst, where I make sure that the hardware revenues, the software revenues at our company are properly recorded and recognized in accordance to U.S. accounting principles, and so that investors, shareholders, maybe some of you in the crowd can rely on our financial information, that it's accurate, and you can decide for yourselves whether you want to invest in our company. Since this is an icebreaker speech, I just wanted to share some of my hobbies. First and foremost, I'm a huge basketball fan, Lakers fan, Kobe fan, playing basketball. I apologize to all you Bay Area Warriors fans out there, but right now it's the Lakers' time to shine again. Some of my other activities I like doing in my pastime are tennis. I played it throughout high school, and in this picture here, you'll see Rafael Nadal, who is currently in contention in potentially being the greatest of all time. And the last hobby that I enjoy doing is a byproduct of the pandemic. I wasn't into cycling before, but picked it up because it's a good social distance activity. And for me, it's been a blessing because it's been a great way to get exercise, but also see the Bay Area in a different lens, cycling through on the trails, the roads, and seeing the Bay Area in a different light. So with that, that concludes my icebreaker speech. I hope that provides some insight into kind of the person I am and what I aim to be personally and in work life. So thank you all for your time. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Louis. Very interesting, very interesting. Interest in sports. Welcome to Startup Speakers again. Let's spend a minute or two to send a private chat to Louis as feedback for his speech. Thank you very much. So moving on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Zanya. She is one of our new members, very insightful in her perspective of what seems to be menial events in our lives. But now I'm looking forward to her next speech. Let's raise our hands for Zanya.
Hello, fellow Toastmasters. Today, I would like to tell you a story. You see, it was the first day of my internship, and I was excited to be there. It was my opportunity to try out being a real engineer in industry. My whole academic career had been leading up to this kind of work. So I was there at the first day of my internship working at Plexus Corporation, which is an engineering consulting firm. Essentially, other businesses come in and they say, hey, we need you to design this thing for us. Here are our requirements. We design it for them and then deliver the product and the rights over. So the only person I really knew walking in my first day was the person who did my interview, which was my boss, and his name was Kyle. I go in, Kyle takes me around a tour from the office. He shows me how to make coffee, gets my desk all set up. He says, Zaina, we have a team meeting with some of our colleagues from another location happening this afternoon. I'd like you to come. I said, fantastic. I was really interested to see what kind of meeting this would be. It sounded like a collaboration between the two locations. And when I got there, I found that it was a presentation on how to give presentations. Now, this is something I felt relatively confident in. It's something I'm obviously invested in learning more about, which is why I'm here today at Toastmasters. So I was interested to see what it is he had to say on the topic. Unfortunately, it was an engineer who was giving this presentation, and I don't like stereotypes. But as my dad says, sometimes stereotypes exist for a reason. And in this particular case, it did. It was clear this man had given perhaps a couple technical presentations. Now, he Googled the information on his slides, but had never really tried to put them into action. And he was taking the captive audience of approximately 20 different people between the two sites at our company. I don't know how often you have considered the price of an engineering consultant, but having 20 people in a room for an hour is tens of thousands of dollars worth of investment on the part of Plexus. So it's a pretty big deal what's happening at this presentation. And as it continued on and on, I became more and more disillusioned. At the end of the meeting, my boss turned off the Zoom, so the presenter was no longer with us. He said, Zaina, what did you think? I said, well, I'm a little bit uncertain why this person was giving the presentation. It seems they have little or no expertise, and I don't think it was a good use of anyone's time. This is an example of a direct communication style. I am a direct communicator through and through. Toastmasters recognizes 4 different kinds of communication: initiating, compassion, direct, and analytical. And so, as you can imagine, direct is the one that really resonates with me. And the values that drive a direct communicator are clarity and honesty. From my perspective, we were spending tens of thousands of dollars having consultants listen to someone give a presentation who had no expertise. No one was paying attention to the presentation. Everyone was on their computer, and it didn't provide value. So from my perspective, it made the most sense to communicate that clearly so that those hours and that time could be reallocated to perhaps something useful. And I didn't really want to have to sit in on any more presentations that I didn't learn anything at. The other value that drives that kind of communication, that drives my response, is honesty. It would have felt dishonest for me to have responded to my boss that I thought the presentation was fine, or that I thought it was great, because that's not what I thought. As you can imagine, though, there are a couple drawbacks that exist with this kind of communication style. The most obvious of those being that it can be perceived as very aggressive. There are people who left that meeting that were offended on behalf of the speaker, even though the speaker never heard my feedback, just because they thought he put a lot of time into the presentation, and that alone was worth praise. And it can often lead people to be afraid to voice their own or differing opinions, which ironically is the exact opposite of what we're going for with the direct communication style. My goal was to clearly communicate what I thought so that changes could be made or at least discussed. But nobody else was willing to give feedback after that, even though it was my first day as the intern. The directness of my point was intimidating, even to people who are significantly more senior than I was. So I'm working right now on developing my communication skills. This direct communication style works pretty well with other direct people. Unbeknownst to me at the time, my technical lead was also in that room. He came up to me that day at lunch. He said, "Zaina, do you really believe that?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I do." He said, "I've been thinking that for months. I'm going to go say something." And something happened about it because I communicated clearly. But not all team members are direct communicators. And so altering and morphing my style so that people interact with my feedback in a more positive way and positive change is able to be invoked is something that I've been working on since that point in time. There are a variety of techniques that I can use to do this. They include choosing different words, allowing space for other people to give opinions prior to voicing mine, not choosing phrases with obvious colloquial meanings like waste of time, as well as perhaps some other techniques that people have suggested to me along the way. Which brings me to my request for you, dear fellow Toastmasters. First, when you're giving feedback to me, know that I am a direct communicator. So if you hide your feedback in layers of diplomacy, though that can often be useful in business settings and good for other people, it's possible I won't understand what you're telling to me. Or I won't think that you really need me to work on it and that you just made something up. Second, as I'm giving you feedback in the evaluator role, I beseech you to tell me how I'm doing. If I'm giving feedback to you in a way that you don't like to receive, let me know so I can change it. Dear fellow Toastmasters, thank you. And I look forward to hearing your feedback on my feedback to you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Zaina. I had the same experience. I'm also frank when I go into engineering meetings. So let's give ourselves a minute or so to give feedback to Zaina on her speech. Thank you.
I might have missed something. Do you guys start something? I might have a gap. No, okay.
Okay, so for our next speaker is Wai Ming. Again, thank you, Wai Ming, for such an impromptu speech, but he is very, very good. Wai Ming has a lot of good speeches. He's done a lot of good speeches for the club, and very, very insightful. Very, very insightful. Very, very, very wise insights into technology. And I look forward to hearing from this speech. Thank you very much again, Wai Ming. Let's raise our hand for Wai Ming.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Today, I'm going to continue my second speech in this area about hand configuration. The whole idea is the question for you. Do you want to be successful? I think you're here, part of the reason is because you want to be successful. And to be successful, I claim that you need to be able to have good mind discipline. So I like to propose to you an approach to mind discipline. It's associated with physical exercise. I will draw a parallel. So physical exercise, if you really push yourself and let's say on the treadmill, run really fast, like 10 miles an hour, after a few minutes, you're gonna start feeling pain on your legs and everything. And in fact, after a while, it's gonna be very painful. So my claim is, if you want to have mind discipline, you have good discipline in your mind, you also need to impose some pain on your mind. Now, in your muscles, you can feel the pain. In the mind, how do you feel? What is the pain? The pain is there's no sensors in the brain in terms of pain. So I claim it's going to be something like frustration. When you face something, when you face a difficult problem you cannot solve, you feel frustrated, you feel hopeless. And so how do you overcome that? So that's what this would be about. So I have a friend who ran marathons, and he was telling me at one time that every day he'll run 10, 20 miles. And at the end of the day, it's very painful. He cannot run again the next day. However, when he uses something to massage his legs, the next day he can run again. So how do you massage your brain if you feel frustrated so you can go again on the brain? The idea there is you use the little frustration that you feel, the tolerance to that frustration, and then learn from that so you can face more frustration. At least that's the idea. And that's what people call grit. And apparently Einstein thinks that way. So he was saying, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with the problems longer. So you have to stay with the problems longer. That's how you deal with the frustration. So the example I have is this. This is my hand configuration. This, for me, represents the X, Y, Z coordinate. I learned that in physics, and I've been using this for the last few years in terms of helping myself understand what things are. So why is this even complicated? Because this represents any object in space, X, Y, Z. However, when you have a Z this way, you can have the X this way and Y that way, and that is wrong. It has to be X and Y. It just have to follow this rule because that's the convention. But if you get mixed up, things could get really messed up. So you have to keep it straight. With the object, you also need to worry about X, Y, Z, and it has to be relative to some zero somewhere else. Otherwise, you don't know what these numbers means, these three numbers. And then each object, besides having a physical location, it also has to have an orientation. And that's three more numbers because you have to rotate around each one of the axes. And that is the physical location of the object. But then, and I'm talking about this because I have to deal with this, and I felt frustration over time dealing with this. You also have to worry about the change in location, which is velocity. And that's another 6 numbers. And then you have to worry about change of the velocity, which is acceleration. That's another 6 number. And then you have to worry about change of the acceleration, which is jerk. That's another 6 numbers. So by the time you finish, you have 24 numbers that you have to deal with any particular object. But you're going to master this, then you can manipulate a self-driving car, you can manipulate a drone, you can manipulate a spacecraft and other things. So that's what I had to deal with on my spare time. And I felt frustration after frustration. But over time, once I get this straight, I can go to the next level, which is how do you do the transformation from one to the next? How do you actually then control this using a program, all that stuff. And that is just a representation. Now, you don't have to worry about this necessarily. In accounting, you deal with other problems. In consulting, you deal with other problems. In programming, you deal with other problems. With management, there are other situations. But for me, this just represents the area that one has to spend your time on to focus on it. So I want to conclude with just a few words. I offer you pain to train the brain with 3. I call this 3. To get you on the fast lane, maintain your game and sustain your game. Train again and again in your lifelong time frame so you are the master of your aim. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you, my main. Very, very good speech on 3-dimensional thinking. So let's give ourselves a minute or two to give feedback for Wai Ming in private chat. Okay, so we move on to our general evaluator. Our general evaluator for this morning is Georgie. Let's raise our hands for Georgie.
Good morning, everyone. Today I will be the general evaluator, and I will begin by being the evaluator for our first speaker, who is Louis. Louis was giving his icebreaker today for people who are unaware. In theory, the icebreaker is about you, but it could in theory be about anything you want. Louis did discuss the icebreaker traditionally the way we do, which is as an intro. I love the way that you brought the slides in because it really made it very personal that way. We could see pictures of your family and kind of a snapshot of your life, done in just basically 4 slides or so. It was really well done. I thought especially the slides were incredibly well done for an icebreaker. You have a excellent pace and volume from when you were giving your speech. You also smiled and had a lot of facial expressions. I can see the love you have for your family and the way you're just enjoying your life in general just comes through the speech really, really well. The other thing I think is a real strength for you, and I'm very jealous of it, is that you use amazing phrasing and wording and they just drop off of your tongue. Like, for example, you were talking about how your parents are the epitome of the love you have for the family. The phrasing you use was really good, and like you were talking about, your sister was both an aspiration and the potential that you look for. Once again, the words that you use are at a very high level. I mean, mostly when we're a lot of times when people speak, they use very simple phrasing, but you're using really rich visual language at the drop of a hat. And I think that's going to be probably a good strength for you going forward. The one thing I would suggest that you might want to look into as far as what you might want to look into improve is that this is kind of a issue when you do slides. You tend to focus on the slides themselves and you kind of forget about the representation of yourself. You kind of like let the slides be the subject of the talk. So as a result, you didn't use a lot of gestures, but you did end with giving a slight bow. So you were using some gestures with the talk. The other one small thing I would say, and this is just because we have to deal with it with Zoom and all this stuff, the lighting in your room is slightly so that I can see one side of your face, but not the other side of your face. So you might want to just see what you can do about balancing the light situation out. Otherwise, things like your positioning and the sound quality was excellent. So the only other thing I was just for that one production thing, I am really looking forward to your next speeches, and I think they're only going to get way better from this. Thanks. Okay, and going back to my role as general evaluator, I will now introduce our next evaluator, who is Haroon, who will be evaluating Zaina's speech.
Well, thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Thank you, everybody, and especially Zaina. Zaina, today's speech was about your first day at your internship, aptly titled Day One. I like that title. I know that you sent me a note earlier on saying that it wasn't the best, but I think it was a really good, simple title to the speech. Now, the main goal of this speech was to evaluate your personal communication style. And I think you covered that pretty well. What I really liked at the end of your speech was your call to action. You put your cards on the table, you told your story, set us up, and said why you want to get direct, honest feedback, even at the cost of being maybe being criticism. And that actually, and in that purpose, the speech actually worked very well. The things that I think didn't go as well was your introductory speech. When you were trying to set up the background of why you wanted to be this way. For a second there, I couldn't tell what your goal was and I couldn't connect to it. And then finally at the end of your story where you said, hey, this is my speech and why I prefer a direct approach, because you got a lot of good feedback. I think, in my personal opinion, you could have actually started your day right from the point when you started your story, when you walked in the door. And you could have just set it up something like, hey, I was walking on my first day and went to a meeting on presentations by this engineer. If you could start off with there, but actually lengthen your story and give you more time to explore the different styles of communication. Now, the other thing that I missed about that I think you could have worked on was the fact that, yeah, you do have a direct communication style, but what is another communication style? Are there any contrasting communication styles? That is something that you could also incorporate in as part of your speech, because that will give some perspective to the audience of how to deal and respond to this particular speech. So that was the thing. I did detect that, yeah, you do have a very direct communication style, but something that you could actually, giving some contrast will give you some perspective on how you should actually treat that topic. Thank you again for your speech, and I look forward to your next one.
Thank you.
Management General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Haroon. Our third evaluator today is Gautam, who will be doing a review for Wai Ming. and we will get the timer going for the evaluation. And Gautam, go ahead with your evaluation of Wang-Ming's speech.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Thank you, Wei Ming, for the great speech. As always, you come up with the topics ranging from biographics to technology to a general thing that anyone can understand or related to their life. You started with very good introduction, and you accepted the speech at the last minute request, and that is really so nice of you. And you had a very good pauses between sentences. However, there are some vocal clarity and the pitches of the word could be improved. When you mix of your laughing along with the word, I tend to hear that the sound of the word got truncated at the end, so that could be improved. And you had very good comfortable level, and you never afraid of like you. I feel like you doesn't have audience fear, so you know understand the audience. You read their audience pulse, and you change your tone accordingly. And it could be have regular. I should say that if you plot your pictures in a graph, then it could be like a which is spike. Sometimes it's like truncating the words. So I would like to keep them in a either in a up level rather than going in a downtrend. And you had a very good comfortable level, like I mentioned. However, you added some fillers. I guess that could be avoided. So if you feel very comfortable, then I would add a pause. Just keep pause, have a just silent for a moment instead of using a filler word. And I see the difference between the speech, the one that you have very well prepared or rehearsed previously, rather compared to the impromptu speech. The pictures, the clarity, and the truncation of the words, which I have, or I would say that it has very good, not a enormous amount of fillers or truncation in your prepared speech. So overall, it was a very good speech. I like the clarity and used the gesture very well. And I have never seen like your gestures were like always within the frame. I guess you have very good setup in your the camera, and also the lighting conditions is very good. I really like that your setup. So I would like to challenge you to avoid the fillers and by maintaining your comfort level. Uh, Thank you, Amy. I'm very excited for the next speech.
Thank you very much, Gautam. With that, I believe that I shall now turn it over to our table topics master. And today, that person is who exactly?
Wei Ming.
Me.
Wang Ming. Wang Ming. Wow, doing a lot of double duty today.
Yeah.
Wang Ming.
That's been it. Sorry.
Okay, well, so we're gonna run at the table topics, and table topics is very interesting. We're facing a different world. So I'm gonna show a bunch of pictures, and I'm gonna just ask each one of you, whenever we have time, to speak on a topic that you're interested in the picture, and then we'll just go from there. And if you can do it in 1 to 2 minutes, that'll be good. So the picture starts here. Oops. So this is one picture. So I'm going to run through a picture, and then I'm going to start asking you guys. Yeah. So this is one picture. Here's the second picture. Here's the third picture. And I'll come back to this. This is the 25 new words in the Webster Dictionary in 2021. More pictures. More pictures. More pictures. More pictures. we're gonna run out of time. So I'm gonna ask Jose, which one do you want to talk about? You're on mute.
Yeah, so the airport picture is good. Yeah, this is I've done, actually, I'm the first in our company to actually travel again from my last couple of weeks ago where I had to go to Texas, and they were very surprised that I did. And I was really did want to go, but it's something that cannot be avoided, unfortunately. And I really did have to go to Texas. So I expected a lot because of the way we are right now. There are rules, and I looked at the rule for flying, the rule for hotels, the rules for renting a car, the rules for even visiting the customers. And if you're curious, what it was actually Texas Instruments, and they're very, very procedural in the way they see engineers. So it's very, very challenging. So it's very, like I said, disorienting, and that was an experience. And even the engineers, when I met them, they were all talking about, I just came back to the office just because of you. So I woke them up basically from their slumber of being at home and designing from home. And I really they had to meet me, and so they were very hesitant from doing that. In fact, there was one engineer that spent a day with me, and they said, "Oh, okay, I'm going back to the." He liked being at home. He really did. And the next day, he didn't want to see me again. It was an odd, and there's an odd reaction to being away from home again. So he really want to go back again. So again, this is a different world and a different experience. Less traffic. There's a few more hindrances when it comes to masks on flying, and there's a lot of security checks for visiting companies. So that's my experience when going through this new situation of COVID that we're experiencing right now. And things are gonna get better. I'm still looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Hannah.
I will take the one towards the end, social interaction. So one of the unprecedented consequences of the COVID situation, especially in sheltering at home, and even with children not going to school recently, that I've come to become aware of, is just the aftermath of reduced human interaction. And with that being said, I want to say more reduced social interaction and reduced amount of social skills in general. For example, I can draw a contrast between children in the schoolyard, where normal conventions are to ask one child to another, hey, do you mind if I play with you, and what is your name? So just even observing my nephew, some of that has gone away, and kids have even forgot to do things like that, and or just even how to make friends in general. But also drawing a contrast amongst adults, so people that may have not really interacted with their coworkers, and even hearing stories of people that have moved jobs several times due to COVID layoffs and getting new jobs and have not even physically interacted or physically seen their other coworkers. So just working on projects remote and not even seeing their coworker who they work with, or even talking with them outside of work. There's a huge loss of human interaction, and that sometimes often comes apparent in even going to like the store or grocery store, or even interacting with somebody that you would on a daily basis, and just not even saying hello, introducing yourself. So I would say that's one of the unprecedented consequences of the pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Hannah. Harun, which picture do you want?
I mean, can we go to the picture or the slide with all the movies? So in terms of the movies, all of these movies seem to be awesome that I want to watch. I do want to point out that I'm really looking forward to the one in the middle. because that movie is an adaptation of one of my favorite novels, Dune. And over the years, I've seen almost all of the different productions of Dune. And this seems to be, in terms of production values, the closest that will be for the kind of world that I imagined when I read the book. So I think this is one movie that is going to be awesome. The other ones, I'm not so sure about. I know that the James 007 movie is all popcorn theater, and so is the one with all the F-18s that are flying. I'm not sure how realistic it is, but I think that these are the kinds of movies you would enjoy watching on the big screen, but I don't have that at home. So I'm not sure how enjoyable these will be. I think I'm just going to wait for it to arrive on cable. One of the good things of the pandemic has been that a lot of studios are now releasing their movies directly on their subscription channels. So I haven't seen it yet, but I did see Zack Snyder's cut for the Justice League, and was way much better than the one they showed in the theaters. At least that's my opinion. And I'm looking forward to spending a few hours this weekend watching Kong versus Godzilla. And as you can probably tell from my taste in movies, it's not very highbrow. I really like to watch movies that are dumb and full of entertainment and nothing of value, except for the middle one. I think that's a very smart one. The last thing that I do want to point out, that MI7, that's a scene from The Matrix, not from Mission Impossible. So thank you, Mr. Cable Topics Master.
Thank you, Arun. And so it reflects the type of movies I watch too. So in any case, Gautam, which slide do you want?
I'd like to go with the Virgin Galactic and space. Yep. So I was really fascinated about space and the companies that they are exploring this domain of. I don't consider it as a business. Instead, I would consider it as exploration, curiosity. What else we have left? The world is so tiny, and we are not going to stay here as a permanent person. Whatever we are going to build, it's the fortune that we are going to make, or we are making, will be used or enjoyed by someone. And most of the people who are building on this would be, they are donating their fortune to others. I see a lot of interest in exploring the space right now. If you look at the number of satellites they launched recently, or last 5 years, it's enormous amount of satellites. And the companies, they are investing a lot of money in this space to explore it. Recently, Virgin Galactic, I liked it, especially look at the design. Like, I really like to travel in that. And everyone have a different perspective. And Virgin Galactic, they are looking into space tourism. Obviously, I will be the one other person who will be in that ship to look at the space, to enjoy the space, what else we have beyond the Earth. Because we are living in a short life, just want to explore what is existed beyond the Earth. Thank you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. How about Georgie?
Okay, how about let's see, 2 before this, whatever that was.
Which one? Just tell me you stop.
That's good. Whatever. That's good. Let's see. So we have the 25 new words in the dictionary for this year. Although I'm not really sure that this is a really pristine list of new words, because I actually recognize quite a few of them already. For example, bubble, for example, has been quite around for quite a while. Wet market, I thought that was one that people already knew, but maybe that's because it's maybe more of an Asian thing. So if you go to like any of even the local Asian markets around here, you probably have a concept of a wet market. But some of the other ones like prison industrial complex, things like that, we've heard around. And certainly things like co-working. Co-working has been such a foundation of Silicon Valley and the startup industry for years. I can't understand how it isn't part of more of a lexicon. I just guess that it isn't what it is for ordinary people, for regular people. Maybe it's not just part of their foundation of work like crowdfunding, gig worker, makerspace, things like that. That's kind of very, very Silicon Valley. Now there's one that I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce properly, the Hygge, I believe. It's, if I remember correctly, it's kind of a Scandinavian, Swedish concept, or Danish concept. The concept of basically being very at home, very cozy at home is the way I kind of phrase it, but it's an entire mentality. I think if you had 6 months of really crappy weather, then it would make a lot more sense to want to make sure your house was as beautifully put together as it possibly could. And since we've all just had about 1 year of not being able to go outside, it makes a lot of sense that that concept is something that we're all sort of has trickled out into the greater consciousness of the world. Because since we all had to kind of lock down for a year and not go insane, we all had to learn how to really get as much out of our living spaces as we possibly could. All in all, I think that there have a lot of interesting definitions on here. Once again, things that I just think of as part of our world in general. I hadn't really thought of as being a big difference, would be like long hauler, Jedi, all of these things. I didn't really think of it as being a huge deal, but I guess I'm going to learn something every day on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgie. I think you might have demonstrated flex, but anyway, how about Louis?
I'll take the Uber one. So this slide I find very interesting. It's very telltale of kind of where we are in technology right now. We're kind of in the pinnacle of, switching between, manual life and automated life. Like the Uber car, looks like on top of it has like this autonomous driving unit. On the right side, there's a picture of a drone. And when I thought of that, I thought of Amazon potentially releasing drones to deliver packages. And so, when I look at this, it's tricky. Like, it's awesome that we have these new technologies that can, make, life's inconveniences better. Like, imagine going on the freeway and having autonomous driving, or having a Uber driver or Uber car that takes you from X to Y without any human interaction. And even drones, like with that, you can have a package delivered from a facility potentially within an hour, depending on how much are released. But what I find the most tricky about this is that you're making the world more efficient, but at the same time, there's the other side, like the human factor that you might lose out of it. All these Uber drivers, all these delivery drivers, they could be replaced. And so then I think it's up to the government to find that balance of like, okay, if you lose it by creating these technologies that automate things, you're saving money and it's better for the future. But at the same time, how are you going to replace that human aspect, and how are you going to find new jobs for these people? And even for me, it's like, I told you guys I'm an accountant. So for me, it's like, oh, what if they automate accounting? Then I'll be out of a job. And so, who knows? But I think it's interesting. I think it's a worthwhile topic, and hopefully the government can figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you. One last one, Zaina.
Ooh, I want the one with the graph. I think there's an unspoken art of making quality graphs. And they have a variety of different classes that you go to in engineering school. Some of these include engineering writing, or there are project-based classes where they try and teach you how to make presentations, but they never seem to effectively teach you how to make a quality graph. And so there's a large variety of things that can show up in the world. And I'd like to use this one that Wyoming has chosen for us as an example of some good and hard points of graphs. You'll notice at the top that the title of this graph is quite intriguing, right? Structure solver, that's interesting. It's not terribly descriptive though. Just looking at that title, I have very little idea what it is that this graph is actually describing. And I don't know how often you have had other people look at graphs, but I'd imagine every time that Wyoming has flipped through this, until this exact moment in time, you also had no idea what this graph was about. Something that could have perhaps been done in order to make it more clear would have been to shorten the explanation up at the top, or perhaps put that over to the side and give a more descriptive title. Perhaps a title that just says AlphaFold 2 is outperforming competitors. That would have told you what was happening. The Alpha 2 fold lines, which indicate the 2018 and the 2020, is quite nice. The explanation in the middle of the graph pointing to the 90, I do think is a little bit wordy and rather distracting to the natural flow of the graph, however. There's quite a bit of debate out and about this, but I feel like almost every time I had a project that I was doing with a fellow engineer, we spent a long time trying to figure out how to present the graph so that non-engineers would understand what it is we were talking about, with varied success. So thank you, Wyoming, for presenting the slide for us today about graphs.
Thank you very much. So table topics is done. I'm going to return control back to the Toastmaster.
Yes,
Actually,
as the GE. Yes.
yeah,
Hand it over
actually,
to
I
the
think
GE.
the general
Yes.
evaluator did some of this, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that, the time now is to start. I'm supposed to evaluate the meeting and evaluate the evaluators, I believe. Since we, so with respect to the evaluators, I think that my evaluation of Louis obviously needs tons of work. I will work on that in the future. Haroon did an excellent job as always. I thought that Zane gave a really good speech, but I thought that he did give some excellent constructive feedback in that the story could have been made a little shorter, more concise, and allow her to bring in other things to talk about, such as Haroon suggested, maybe some more variations on different types of communication styles that may or may not work. Could maybe even brought in an example of other ways to communicate the same message using some of these different formats. Gautam, I thought you did a really good job evaluating Wang-Ming. Wang-Ming, once again, great job doing a kind of off-the-cuff type of speech. Gautam, I thought you gave a really good way to, in which you gave the feedback to Wang-Ming. He has given a lot of speeches in the past, so with that background, it can be a little hard to give a high quality evaluation. I thought you did a great job with that. The other thing you did was you kind of used quasi sandwich approach, which is in Toastmasters, you give some very positive feedback, then you put inside that sandwich some critical feedback on things people can work on. And you're supposed to end with the sandwich with some more positive feedback, but you instead decided to propose a challenge to Wang-Ming on how he might be able to improve in the future. Give him some more, even more direct feedback. I thought that was an excellent way to kind of reevaluate the sandwich, especially since Wang-Ming is more advanced speaker. That was totally cool. Now, with respect to the meeting, we started on time. Roles were filled very quickly. Didn't have any guests this time around. I thought everything flowed quite well, and I put that to to both Haroon and to Jose, starting off things so well. Speeches were great. Evaluations, except for mine, was great. Table topics, well done with the pictures. I thought that was really an excellent variation. And with that, I'll ask our people with our roles to, starting with our, sorry, word master. Gautam, please.
Yeah, okay. So the word of the day is pristine. I guess I have heard very few people used it. Jose, Georgie, uh, except others, except Jose and Georgie. I couldn't notice that. But if I missed anything, yeah, sorry for that. But let's try to use more word of the day in our meetings.
All right, thank you very much. Can we get the timer report, Wang Ming?
Yes, Ms. General Evaluator, in the prepared speeches, Louis spoke for 6 minutes and 12 seconds, Zaina 7:15, myself 6 minutes. In the evaluation, without Georgie's prompting, I would have not timed anyone and done a very non-pristine job. But in any case, Georgie and Aruna didn't time count them, 3 minutes and 11 seconds. In the table topics, Jose 2:02, Hanath 1:35, Harun 2 minutes and 2 seconds, Eldon 1:55, Georgie 2:51, Louis 1:45, and then Zaina 2:09. Ms. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Our next report will be from Hannah, but before we get the grammarian report from Hannah, I'd just like to remind everybody that we have a link in the chat. Please click on it in order to give your ballot so that we can get all of everything put together. And with that, if Hannah could give us our evaluations.
Thank you, Ms. General Evaluator, for grammarian's report. One thing overall, I just want to encourage the group too to be mindful of this adverb really. So really, we heard really interested, really well, really rich. Just be really mindful of that. I did hear that from almost every speaker, as well as just adjective. A lot of these adjectives like good, excellent, great. Some of these adjectives also have rankings. So when we say like, okay, fine, it's really less than 50%. Just looking at my experience from customer service projects and the actual confidence that comes with a word. So like when you say something is good, it's really 54% satisfaction. So it's not really that great, where great is like an 82% satisfaction, and excellent is a word that you want to use, which is over 90% confidence in what you're saying. So just be aware of the rankings of these adjectives when saying something is really good, and these adverbs of using really and very. We tend to use that a lot in our speech, so just being mindful of that. There were some highlights I do want to just go over. Gautam used truncation, this word. It was a really good word. I actually want to explore that word a little bit. Georgie, Lexington, and quasi. Really good uses of those words as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And our last report will be from our counter, who's Harun. We don't currently have anyone listed as joke master, but do we have a joke maybe or okay. Harun, can we get the counter report?
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I didn't count a lot of ahs this time. I think that Zaina and Wang Ming's speeches were pristine. They had no ahs and ums. I had a few. I noticed after I'd done my evaluation where I was using yeah and these kinds of filler words. I know thinking about it retrospectively, in retrospect, it didn't come out quite right, and it's something that I need to work on. Louis, generally we don't count ahs and ums, so while I do have a count, I think if you're interested, I'll tell you that. But thank you for your icebreaker speech. Other than that, I didn't count a lot of ahs and ums. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Harun. Let's see. So do we have any potential joke person? Possibly?
Got a joke.
Great. Jose.
Okay. An elementary teacher asked her students, boys and girls, use bean in a sentence. A girl stands up and says, my mother can cook beans. Very good. A boy stands up and says, my father can grow beans. Very good. The talkative boy in the back goes, we are all human beings. Get it? Get it? Being. That's it.
All right, and with that, I am going to turn it back over to our president. Oh, wait, sorry, I think, did I get the timer report from Waming? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I think we also just have to finish up voting, but I think we're all 1, 2, 3. Make
Well,
sure.
while
Yeah, I
you
think
do
we're all
that, I
good.
just want to remind everybody that we are going to be sending a link out for the meeting recording. So especially for our people who've just done icebreakers, you've just had your speaking style right now is pristine, and now you can start studying how to improve things over time. So one more word of the day in there.
All right, so before we get into the announcements for the winners, do we want to fill roles? Or do we have any announcements, Georgie? Any other announcements that you want to make?
Just, we did have dues come due, and so I believe everyone's all paid up. Other than that, I don't know of anything that's coming up, except for taxes, of course, but that's a different story.
Okay, we'll meet after the meeting about that. All right, so please give a round of applause for Best Table Topics Master, especially in Wyoming, and his creativity. So drum roll and round of applause for Zaina and Haroon. Zaina and Haroon, congratulations. Best Evaluator for this morning, give a drum roll round of applause to Haroon. So Haroon, excellent. And Best Speaker this morning, we'll have a round of applause. And if you can stand, I think some of you guys are sitting, for Louis and his icebreaker speech. So if you can't get up, but if not, let's now give him a round of applause. So congratulations, Louis, and your icebreaker and the Best Speaker this morning. I know we're almost at time, but let me just quickly open up the sign up sheet so that way we can at least do that one. Okay. And then does anybody want to be Toastmaster for next week?
I'm speaker.
You said you're a speaker? I didn't hear who that was. Sorry.
I'm speaker. Haroon is speaker. I'm going to
Oh,
be
Haroon?
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay.
I think.
So Waving's a backup. And then, yeah, some of this bottom stuff we can fill out. Does anybody else want to speak besides Haroon?
I can be a timer. Oh, sorry, you're talking
Timer?
about.
All right, it's good.
Okay.
You can be timer, then I don't have to be timer.
Okay.
I can be a backup speaker if we need one.
Okay.
And I can be,
Georgie.
I guess, table topics master, maybe?
I can be evaluator as well.
Okay.
For somebody besides myself.
So, okay. I'll send it for evaluator too.
I'll be evaluator.
What about Toast?
Right.
Evaluator, Jose?
Yeah.
What about Toastmaster? Louis, do you want to try out being Toastmaster next week?
Why don't
Or
you?
two? Oh, go ahead, Georgie.
I was just saying, I mean, technically it'd be his second meeting, so maybe we should, if he can, he can do it if he wants, but usually we give people a bit more.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I could be Toastmaster, that's what I mean.
Okay. Why meeting? Excellent. I'll sign up for Table Topics Master unless somebody else wants to take it.
That's fine. I can be,
Okay.
do we need any more evaluators?
Do you want to be General Evaluator again, Georgie?
Sure.
Oh, I think.
Anything else we need? Doesn't look like it.
Okay, so that's good. I know we're already up at 8:30, so thank you guys for hanging around.
Okay.
All right, and we'll fill the rest of the roles on WhatsApp. Louis, are you in our WhatsApp group, or have we added you on there yet?
Yeah, I think Jose,
Yes.
but I haven't
You're
checked
on
it.
there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Well, you guys have a great morning. It's another great day that we have out in the Zoom world. So we're still on Zoom. still not yet meeting in person. So thank you guys for another productive meeting, and then thank you, Toastmaster Jose, for taking over this morning as well. Oh, and then I think we're still recording, but let's take a quick picture, whoever's still left on here. 1, 2. All right, excellent.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Thank you guys.